Holy fuck!
You got 8 dogs at your house?
Yeah. Well, 7. Yeah, 7 are mine, and then 1 is staying here. He's going home tomorrow, and then so I'll have the 7 for a few days, and then when somebody else needs me, I'll make room for them. But
nice. How do they all get along? Do they have any issues?
Yeah, definitely. So only a few of them are coexisting. The rest are they stay they keep to themselves.
Yeah,
but it's just a process. But either way, everyone's like happy and comfortable and safe is the main thing. But we figure it out.
Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know. I don't know if I told you, but I bought a bidet for my bathroom. Oh, and let me tell you something. It was a Tushy.
Okay.
And I set that shit up probably like a month ago, and let me tell you, man, knowing that you have a clean asshole, there's really not a better feeling. Like, honestly. Go to shit.
Get up and not wipe or something? What do you mean?
I'm just saying, like, just to know that it's really, taken care of down there. I enjoy, and I don't look down on y'all for like having gross assholes, but I just want to say that I'm not part of that gang now.
Wait, because wiping with wipes is a upgrade, I have to say, because I'm a wipe guy, so I'll use some butt wipes, right?
Some dude wipes.
But the bidet, I think you just sold me on the bidet. I've just never bought one, but I've always thought about it.
It was cheap. It was easy to install, dude. It's worth the investment for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Then when you shit in public and you have to go in public, then you're fucking slumming it. Then you got a fucking trash can.
Yeah.
You got to bring your own water bottle with like a little faucet
on the top.
Just sit on that.
Fuck no.
Get Hello Tushy as your first sponsor on here. I think goes without saying. Right?
Yeah, 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Totally Biased Music. We're your hosts, Blake and Christian, and today we have a very special guest returning to the show, actually. I think this is our first guest to return to the show. Most of our guests do one episode with us, realize what this is, and then don't contact us again. So it is nice to have Anthony back on the podcast with us. Anthony, thanks for joining. We're super stoked. Obviously, big music guy. Thanks for coming back. What made you want to come back? We didn't push you away the first time.
Well, so I have a hidden agenda every time I come on this show, and the agenda is to educate Blake on his music taste. So I'm hoping this is like 2 for 2 albums that he's never heard before. Hopefully, but no, man, I love you guys, and any chance to talk music and kick it is I'm in. So thanks for having me.
100%. So with that, you picked Fear Inoculum by Tool. So brief intro. It says, whether or not this album is the, quote, grand finale, swan song, and epilogue that Maynard James Keenan alludes to in Descending, the first thing to say is that Fear Inoculum will not disappoint. On their longest ever album, despite only containing 7 songs broken up by 3 brief ambient interludes, Tool refines and expands on their greatest strengths to create a meditative, intensely complex album that may, in terms of sheer musical skill, be their most impressive yet. So, that being said, why did you pick this album? How long have you been listening to Tool? What do you have to say about it? Do you agree with that? Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to get ahead of this and say I'm not fluent in Tool, but I strive to be. Tool is like a band that growing up people would talk about. Christian talked about it because his dad listened to it, and we'll get there, I'm sure. But the idea was this album came out at a time that I was very aware of Tool. So it was like my first kind of experience into their world in a way that I could share with a lot of other people who had never heard this album because it was the first time, we all could listen to it. So it was kind of my first real introduction to them. Very, like I said, I had heard of them, but just never dove into their music and was kind of waiting for a time like this to happen. And I don't know the exact timeline, but I want to say maybe like 12 years between albums, this one and another one. Don't quote me on that, but so huge appreciator of their music, and I'm constantly learning, I think, every time I listen to them, their tendencies and all. So, yeah, so this was kind of a good intro for me to Tool and maybe for some other people as well.
Nice. Christian, what about you?
Oof, I don't even know where to begin with fucking Tool. It's one of those bands that I think from the onset of me listening to music in any form have always been there, because my dad was just absolutely obsessed. I remember, like even back in elementary school, because I think what Undertow was, I think 93 or something like that when it dropped, and that was what he used to fucking blast all the time. And from the second I heard, so there's a song on Undertow called Bottom that still to this day is probably one of my fucking top 10 songs. After listening to Fear Inoculum, I was going back and just listening to all the older shit, was listening to this, to that album, to Undertow. And when I was in middle school, I was in my fucking kind of preppy, high school baseball or middle school baseball phase, and my dad takes me to see Tool. I think it was at the Pelham Amphitheater, and fucking Maynard comes out, and just like culture shock for me. It was one of those moments that probably the most pivotal moment in my music growth, as far as like where I am now and where I was then. Like walking into that scene, as far as like culture shock for me, was like, what the fuck have I been missing out on?
Like, oh, there's music like this?
Oh, it's another world.
It was a complete other world. Just all these people, like hardcore, and I was probably in like a fucking pink button down or something with like the Hoover swoop going on. But Maynard comes out and he plays the whole set with his back to the crowd, and I was like left just mind blown.
Right.
And so Tool has always kind of had that spot for me. Was listening to them forever, and then with Lateralis coming out, it was just like something that we always had in rotation. But the big release for me was that 10,000 Days, because I remember going to buy the CD with my dad, and it was that one that Alex Gray and his wife had created, the whole like album packaging that had these glasses that were attached to the CD that folded out, so every page that you flip through of this album were these like 3D psychedelic projections. And it was just every single part of Tool were these like little growth moments of like, oh, there's some fucking wild shit out there. And what they were doing with their music was just like mind boggling to me. And so when Fear Inoculum came out, it was this extremely just like highly anticipated for me, because you're like, where could they possibly fucking push their sound from what they already have been doing? And I will tell you the truth, like when I first listened to it, I wasn't sure how to feel, because I was expecting, I guess, like more push on sound, and it really took a couple of listens for me, and we can get into it a little later, but to where I really started to love this album. So that's kind of my Tool background. It's pretty extensive, not to flex on them or anything.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite, which is shocking to me because, I know Christian knows this, but like I love this type of music. Like this is just what I enjoy, and this heavy type of music is what drew me to so many artists that I listen to now. People like Bass Nectar, people like Metallica, Nirvana, like that sound, that heavy, almost violent sound at times, but still to a point where like it's still beautiful and creative. I'm really drawn to music like that. And so when Fear Inoculum was coming out, I remember people, being really excited for it and talking about Tool and talking about a new album. And I was like, who the fuck are these people? I didn't know anything about Tool. And when Fear Inoculum came out, like I remember instantly just like straight from the intro track, self-titled Fear Inoculum, I remember being like, all right, this is something I'm going to fucking enjoy. And I periodically come back to this album. I'll get into a particular song that I listen to on rotation later. But yeah, it's been phenomenal. I've gone back and listened to 10,000 Days. I rinsed, after Fear Inoculum, I rinsed their whole discography.
Fuck yeah.
And then I saw him at Bonnaroo. This was 2022. And I'll be honest, like it was Saturday and I was fucking drained when I saw them, and nobody was with me except for Shania at the time. Nobody wanted to see Tool. So we were there, and like it was an amazing show, and like I really enjoyed it, but I was so like physically drained at that point that it was kind of like they're coming here to Denver in February, and I really want to go to the show to like just go and be sober at it and be rested and like be able to like take it all in and enjoy it, because the Bonnaroo show is great, but like just physically I was worn out, but it was still really enjoyable. And so yeah, I mean, great band. I hate that I was put onto them so late, and it's shocking to me that I was put onto them so late. I don't know how I didn't catch them like on the radar before Fear Inoculum. I mean, granted, like you said, it was 13 years in between 10,000 Days in this album, but yeah, ever since the first listen, I've really enjoyed it. So it's kind of my background with it.
And you know, like Tool, to me, from the outside looking in, I say that as like a person interested in Tool, but not like diehard savant into Tool. It can be intimidating, you know, like just a whole nother band, a whole nother world. And I'm very much like, when it comes to music discovery, if it happens organically, that's one thing. But like when you see people who are hyper passionate about something like Tool fans are, it can, I mean, it was intimidating for me, you know? So like I wanted to kind of organically get into Tool in a way that made sense to me. And for me, it was this album. And yeah, doing the same thing, going backwards into their music, it's like a time portal, but it's so powerful, you know? And, the thing,
I
like
think
the
it's
words
intimidating even for people that like, even for me, like going back through it, I still go back through and I find shit and I'm like, whether it be, you know, vocal lyrics, something that I pick, you know, I'm picking something new out and I'm like, how the fuck have I never, you know, picked up on this, or some like sound that I'd never heard before. And it is like extremely intimidating because it's just like, it's so in depth, from their references to their musical inspiration to where they have kind of come from. It's just so much history within it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys do this thing, but I do this thing, which is it's probably works to my advantage sometimes, and other times it doesn't. But when I discover an artist I like if I listen to a song that I like or I listen to an album that I like, I fucking burn myself out and listen to everything. I listen to like, there's a resurgence from the rapper Gunna recently. Like on Twitter, people have been talking about Gunna, and I was traveling. I don't remember where I was going to and coming from, but I listened to one song and I enjoyed it. I downloaded this motherfucker's entire discography and listened to it on the plane ride home, like every album.
Oh, wow.
Like, and I just, because I'm like, there's going to be something else in here that I enjoy. Like, I know that if I am pulled into this one song, there'll be something else. And with Tool, that's hard to do because they're fucking 14-minute songs.
It's journeys, you know, journeys
grunge,
amongst
rock
journeys.
music. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, it's still fun to kind of have that experience. So it was nice.
Exactly.
So let's get into top tracks. Anthony, what do you got?
Okay, so like I said, I fucking love this album, and listened to it again last night just walking the dog, and you just get lost in it, right? And I think something to mention too, before I even mention the top tracks, is something of how this album was like debuted. So you can go on YouTube and just search Fear Inoculum Burning Man, and you're going to find these clips of Alex Gray and his wife and this, I mean, huge, massive people on these giant, you know, floats that are at Burning Man. And that was the debut of this album, was them just blasting it on these massive, like, arc-like structures that they were on. So just, and you don't even have to imagine, you can see just thousands of people soaking it in for the first time and just getting lost in it. You know, Tool is such a like primal band to me that it is a physical, like, cathartic experience to listen to them, and then to listen to them live like that is a whole nother thing. But the songs that I picked, like I said, it's hard because I like all of the album, but the top track I have is Pneuma. Pneuma is just such a heavy riff that just keeps coming at you over and over, and it continues to build too. Tool is the way that they make music on first listens, for me, doesn't make sense, but after re-listens and kind of getting lost in this trance that keeps kind of bringing you back and pulsating over and over, it starts to make sense to me. So that's why Pneuma, I have it number one. Number two is Descending. Descending is it's one of those journey tracks that keeps bringing you down, but it's just, there's like these undertones that keep just, I mean, it's hard to express, you know, but it's a physical sensation that I feel when listening to it. So I have Descending as number 2. Number 3 is a track called Culling Voices. And this one is just dark. This is the one where the vocals resonate with me way after listening to it. I used to have this term, and I still use it every now and then at shows that makes sense to me. I call it musical residue. So like you go see a show live and you leave the show and you're not listening to music, but there's music on a loop in your head after the fact.
Yeah.
So the vocals of Maynard just basically repeating, "Don't you dare point that at me." Just hits me so hard because the way he builds it in that track and then just becomes like a calling card, like just it's so physical. That lasts with me. I mean, way after the fact. So I got Pneuma, Descending, and Calling Voices as my top 3 tracks.
Fuck yeah.
Nice. Christian?
So Anthony, we're on the same page here.
Fuck
Pneuma is my number 1. The breakdown on that, the build through it, the breakdown at the fucking end is absolutely insane. And then the "we are spirit bound to this flesh, this guise, this mask," just fucking rip right through you. It's so good. The self-titled, the intro track, Fear Inoculum, it sets the creative tone. And with that, the like where they've kind of expanded upon their sound in a refining way, if that makes sense. It shows like, hey, we're experimenting with this stuff still, but this is how far we have kind of come. And there's something about there's these lyrics that are kind of continuously repeated through that: exhale, expel, or expel. And it's like this it's almost like the sense of meditation for me, like inhale good, exhale bad, as you're meditating.
Like a mantra, right?
And that's like what it kind of reminded me of. The funny thing is, like, when I first started going through this, I could not stand these little like interlude type tracks, but there's one that's actually probably like my third, and it's that the litany contra la pure, and it's because it's the litany against fear, which is actually a reference from Dune that Ben Gesserit recite to calm themselves in moments of fear. So that's like what that whole thing is.
Interesting. I did not know that. That's crazy.
So it's, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
That is fucking badass.
That's a line from Dune?
That's the litany against fear. That's what Ben Gesserit. So Paul Atreides, like mothers of Ben Gesserit, who's trained him in their training, and throughout the book, and they do it a couple times in the movie, but you'll see them like reciting this litany against fear, and that's what that's from. It's fucking sick.
Yeah.
That's my third, but I gotta throw that descending into Calling Voices, like those two paired together, it's fucking phenomenal for the same reasons that he was bringing up.
Nice. Man, I'm really shocked. I differ from you guys a lot here, so I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about your bottom tracks. I'm not gonna lie. So I'll start from 3 and I'll work my way down. So number 3, Descending, kind of for the same reason, like the same points that you guys hit on, right? Descending. This is my thing with Descending, though. I have to say this. I listened to this song 3 times today to determine if I liked it or not, because I couldn't figure out if I fucking liked it. Like, it was because it's kind of all over the place. Like you said, Anthony, it's kind of like it is very much a journey, and there are times where like they're doing the Tool thing that I love, and it's getting heavy, and I'm getting into it, and then it dies, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening here? So it was like, but I think I like the sense that they have the ability to do that within one song. I mean, granted, it's fucking 14 minutes long, so it's kind of easy to make that journey happen with that much time, but I do enjoy it. Number 2, surprised that you guys didn't bring this up, but Invincible. Dude, the guitar and drum combo that they have starting at like 3 minutes and 30 seconds, it's kind of just repeating like da-na-na, 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 and the drums are just fucking boo-boo, boo-boo, boo. It's just like, it's so like quintessential Tool to me, and it's just like the grungy metal guitar sounds that they have mixed with the way that they pair the drums. Like, you know, their drummer is so fucking good, and it's just really highlighted in Invincible. And then my number one song, my favorite thus far, my favorite Tool song is fucking Tempest. I love Tempest. Even when I wasn't listening to Fear Inoculum like on repeat, I would go back and listen to Tempest just probably once, twice, 3 times a week, like driving to work or whatever. And that song is a journey song too, man. It takes you all fucking over the place. And I love the lyrics. I love the intro. Like, it's 3 minutes into the song before they even say a word. And just the way that it starts, that slow guitar melody building into just a fucking hurricane of music is so good to me. I will say, I do have to tell this story though. Back many years ago, when I was still dabbling with the weed, I was on an airplane and I took an edible, which don't ever do if you're not a weed smoker. And I took an edible and I was pretty high, and I turned on Tempest and it fucking scared me, so I had to turn it off, and I had to like switch to a podcast because I thought I was going to have a panic attack on the airplane. So I don't know. I had to be in the right state of mind to listen to it, but it's still like, I love it. It's one of my favorite songs. So
Blake just ends up like standing in a trash can, like he's locked himself in the bathroom, just like Frank when Frank when he took that LSD at the tailgate. He just stayed in the trash can and shit his pants.
I had to switch to a podcast to bring me back down to earth. I was like, I'm on another level I shouldn't be on right now.
Somebody just sees Blake like very violently take off his headphones and just kind of look around to see who's all looking at him, and everyone's just staring at him like, "Are you okay, bud?"
Like, did anybody else hear that?
Next song.
Talking to yourself for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my top 3. So now I'm a little interested and a little worried to hear what your bottom tracks are. So Anthony, what do you got?
Okay. Well, before I go into bottom tracks, there's something that's interesting because, well, first off, there's a podcast. I guess we're kind of segueing from podcast to podcast too, with like James Maynard Keenan talking, or Maynard. It's Maynard Keenan, right?
Yeah.
Maynard James Keenan. I get those mixed up. Anyway, he's talking about the creation of the album, and he's explaining the process, and he said that he doesn't even, when he's writing lyrics, it is like the last part of the puzzle. All the musicians are sending tracks back and forth and kind of, coming up with this, canvas, and then he has lyrics that go with the music, which is a very interesting process because this music inspires everything that they do. It inspires the Greys to make their artwork too. So the album artwork is all influenced by the music as well. But the title track is very interesting, and I didn't realize this till last week upon listening and then reading lyrics while I was listening too. So Fear Inoculum, the title track, the album came out before the pandemic, but there are some lyrics in that track that are so like ironic and haunting and weird because like he repeats "fear the breath" often, right? And if you think about the pandemic, everyone was fearing each other's breaths, which is just crazy. There's a lot of
they knew.
There's inoculation. There is delusion from mania, my own mitosis. There's all these just weird, just synchronicities between the pandemic and this album, and it happened right beforehand. So I just found that really wild. Poison, immunity. These words are just repeated ad nauseum throughout that track that are just, it was tripping me out. But
damn, y'all about that? Yeah. You're about to have SWAT called on. We're just gonna get our doors knocked down.
Yeah, right.
Like, what
do you know?
they cracked the code.
Yeah, Tool is literally controlling everything. Okay, so bottom tracks, dude. I did not pick any bottom tracks, but I did have a moment.
Come on.
I'm getting there. Blake, you're going to regret those words, especially after your top track, because this is what happened to me last night. So I'm walking Molly, listening to the album in full, dark, late at night. I'm stoned, and Tempest comes on, and I like the track, but I hadn't listened to it in that context before. Out at night, in dark, walking the dog. And there was a moment in the track that I literally, there's a sound, and I don't know if it's an actual sample or if it's a thing that they're making with their instruments, but it sounds like a dog is chasing, like getting closer. Like there's just a 2-second moment where it sounds like a dog is attacking and encroaching. And I can't explain the feeling that I got, but I literally jumped out of my skin, turned around, was about to like prepare myself for whatever was impending. And then I had to rewind the track to realize that it was in the track itself. And for that one moment, that's why, Tempest is my bottom track. So only one bottom track.
Oh my God.
But it's only because I could do without that sample. And it almost made me shit my pants out on the road.
It scared you too. Now you know what I went through on the airplane.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I get it, man. But it didn't affect your top track though.
True.
All right, Christian.
Yeah, I've got Tempest on there, and it's not
what the fuck is going on, man?
These aren't like these aren't real bottoms for me, but it was mainly just like I didn't feel as much like progression from them in that. It felt very, like you said, quintessential Tool. And if it's like I am nitpicking here, where I'm wanting to hear some like different things, it was great. If you look at it in the consideration of like top Tool tracks, people probably all going to put it up there. But as far as the evolution of their sound, it didn't quite do it for me. The only other one I'd probably put is the Mocking Beat, just because with that being like the last track, it just, I wanted more from a last track on this, but that's really it. You know, I think those are the only real two I could put up there. You know, for nitpicking, I'd maybe throw Chocolate Chip Trip in there, but
yeah,
you know, I think that's all I got.
With an album as heavy as this is, like, there needs to be breaks. There needs to be reprieves because, like, shit, you can only take so much because it is so, like, demanding of you, I feel.
And that's where I was at first on this, was, like, my first listen through when it dropped, I was like, oh, like these little interludes. But you don't – I think it's from that first listen, you're like, just throw it in my face. I want everything. Go, go, go. But when you listen to it a couple times, you're like, oh – like, we need this here.
Right. Yeah, it's necessary. Which is, oh, shit. I got to mention this because this is crazy that I just said that. But there's a song from Tool. It's called Disgustipated. And it is insane. It's crazy. There's a line in that track that says, "This is necessary." And it repeats.
Yeah.
In college. All right. So in college, I was rushing... or I was pledging Lambda Chi at Alabama, and they might, who knows, fuck it. So we had to spend the night in a room there, and we listened to Disgustipated by Tool on a loop for 6 hours. And that song, when you listen to it for 6 hours, it starts to take you down some crazy rabbit holes because, you know, Maynard's talking about your color is green now. And you have to listen to why your color, I mean, it's just insane. But that experience, that may have made me put Tool on pause for a while. So about a 9-year hiatus from Tool just because of that 6-hour experience. But when you're in a fraternity, my whole reason for joining a fraternity was trying to learn shit. So I thought there was a reason behind it. So I'm like really paying attention to this track. But like, it's just fucking a tactic. But either way, that was a wild experience. So I had to mention that as well. So
Anthony learned that most guys in a fraternity aren't as deep within their mind as he is. He's like, he's trying to find like some ulterior like motive behind this. Yeah. It's like, no, we're just trying to be annoying. Like, that's it.
They got the reaction they wanted though, because they didn't know their balls deep, wondering what's going the fuck on.
I'm taking notes. I'm watching who's going where. It was an experience though. All right, Blake.
All right, so bottom tracks for me, like, I know this is a cop-out, so I picked one actual song, but, like, all the interlude tracks, to me, sorry, Christian, even Litany, what is it, Litany Contra La Pure? Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't like any of them. Like, they just take me out of the album. And like, I get it. You know, it's a Tool vibe. It's weird. It's a transition thing. Like, they're kind of trying to break up the album, but like, I don't know. They just pull me out of it. And then Chocolate Chip Trip, I fucking do not like this song. I don't know what I don't know what they were trying to do. I don't know what angle or direction they were taking, but like, it's too much. There's too much going on. It gets electronic, but not in like a good electronic way, like how they use it in other parts of this album. Like, I just don't enjoy the song, and I love the name of it too. I wanted to like it so
you
bad.
want it to be good.
I want it to be good. Like, it makes me think of mushroom chocolates, you know, which I'm very fond of. But like, I just couldn't. I can't get into it. So I don't know. Not my thing. That's my 2 cents on my fresh take on that song.
That track, I saw them in Birmingham when they played their tour after this album, and that track specifically, they did play live, which I had to look back at the set list and see what I actually got to witness.
Like,
not
what
a
the
lot,
fuck was that?
but that track, seemed like a moment for, I think the drummer's name is Danny Carey, to just like fucking go off, you know, like they did their analog synth to kind of like build it up, but then just gave him an opportunity to go off. So I look at it as a showcase for him with some trippy samples thrown in, but
yeah.
I agree with that interpretation too.
That's fair.
That
And
dude
you know,
is fucking bonkers, by the way. Just him as a drummer.
Yeah.
Like, him on 10,000 Days with some of those like steel drum pieces were like some of those tracks were just like some of the most fucking, where me and my dad, he'd be like, he'd make me sit down and be like, listen to these fucking drums. And I'm like, shut the fuck up, Clay.
Fuck yeah.
dude, the guy can fucking rip a drum set, dude. I mean, he's out of this fucking world. It's crazy.
It's insane.
It's insane. Okay, so real quick, I just want to bring up some stuff about the album. So, released August 30th, 2019. It's the band's first album in 13 years, which we talked about. They said due to creative, personal, and legal issues band members encountered since the release of 10,000 Days, it was released to critical acclaim, with reviewers generally agreeing that the band had successfully refined their established sound. The album topped the U.S. Billboard 200 chart, their third album in a row to do so, selling 270,000 album equivalent units in the first week. The album topped 5 other national album charts in its opening week as well. 2 songs off it received Grammy nominations, Fear Inoculum and Tempest.
Interesting.
Yep, and the title track also holds the Guinness World Record for the longest song ever to chart on the Billboard Hot 100. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously, like,
Tempest won that Grammy for Best Metal Performance.
Fuck yeah, nice.
Dude, I did not hear what I heard. No, just kidding.
It's because I didn't listen to it high. That's why.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What are they doing?
So yeah, obviously, like, I mean, bands like this that have a huge following, you know, when they take a long time off, I think it's bound to do numbers upon its release. But I thought 270,000 album that's, you know, that's a shit ton of fucking album sales for the first week for like an alt prog metal band. So I thought that was interesting. So this upset me. It'll probably upset you guys. Pitchfork, our lovely friends of Pitchfork, gave it a 5.4 out of 10. Wow. And Rolling Stone gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which, fun fact, is Rolling Stone's highest rating for a Tool album. So they think it is the best Tool album. So what do you guys think about that? And then we can get into your ratings. Do you think this is just, major publications not understanding what we're understanding and hearing what we're hearing, or you think it's an honest review?
Yeah, I think I never give credit to pop culture's interpretation of legit music, I feel. So it just seems very insulting for a band like this that is, I mean, proving themselves, but also, I mean, they don't need that, you know, like they have enough support, I think, from their fan base for sure. And they continue to deliver, you know. I can't imagine from an artist standpoint, you know, I think I just looked at 13 years between albums, and like you have that much time and you're very active and present, to put out a new album has to be, you know, the pressure has to be pretty, you know, impressive. But to do it and deliver like they did, I mean, that deserves all the credit in the world. But a 3 out of 10 or out of 5?
So Rolling Stone 3.5 out of 5, and then Pitchfork 5.5 out of 10.
Okay, so 3.5 out of 5 sounds better than what I thought. I thought it was 3 out of 10. I was like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, so
that's
I
fair.
think for them, I think it makes sense. I don't think Tool would ever concern themselves. I think seeing that, these publications, I think it makes sense for who Tool is, and that they just are very much one of those artists that you are either all in and really, really get it, or you're just not. And for a Pitchfork or for a Rolling Stone, that makes so much fucking sense to me. So I'm not surprised by that at all. As far as my personal ranking, I won't go into my ranking on this, but as far as for their albums, it's probably it's definitely not in the top 3 for me. Really? I would have Lateralis, 10,000 Days, Undertow, or in my top 3. I'd probably put this 4, but it's because my regard for those albums is so high. It's not putting this one down anyways, because my rating for this is going to be pretty high alone.
Yeah, it's fair. And I'm sure Anthony will love this analogy. It's kind of like when I rank Kanye West albums. It's I can put a Kanye West album at the bottom, but a bottom Kanye West album is still better than the majority of albums ever put out on the face of the earth. So that's just how that is,
Wow. You couldn't go. Last time I was on this podcast, right, I mentioned Kanye, and everyone's like, we do not speak his name. And now Blake singing his praises over there.
It's a very short trip for Blake around that.
Everyone listen back.
I can only stay away for so long.
Right.
I mean, I agree with you guys. Bands like this, like Christian said, you're either all in on them or you're not. And you can't – we make fun of Rolling Stone and Pitchfork plenty. Their album reviews are fucking insane half the time. But, it's just strange to me that – a band of this caliber, normally those legacy publications will look at a band with a high caliber, a high standing within the music industry and kind of let that guide their review, right? Give legacy acts or famous big following acts higher album ratings than they probably deserve. So it was interesting to see them give this such a low, both of them a relatively low rating, but I thought it was interesting. Anthony, what do you rate it out of 10?
So again, back when I was on the last podcast, I told you I was only doing one thing, and I was only going to bring you 10s. So I can't give this anything other than a 10 out of 10. Fuck yeah.
All right, that's fair. Christian?
Take it. I'm going 8.5 on this. I love this album when I look at it as far as I have to take it into consideration with my others. So if I go anything above 8.5, it's not going to feel fair to the other albums I love by them. So I'm sticking with 8.5. Final answer.
Very fair.
Nice.
I got to give it a 9, man. I the only parts I don't like about it are the interludes, and they're so short that it's not really that big of a deal. I think the context that you provided, Anthony, for Chocolate Chip Trip, kind of opens a new door. I need to go back and listen to it after you said that, because using it as a showcase is a really good thing to do, especially for someone who's as talented as he is.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's fucking phenomenal, and I know I'm like a broken record. I'm sure the people that regularly listen to the podcast have heard me say this 1,000 times about 1,000 different bands, but this is just my type of music, man. I just love shit like this. I love heavy shit, Yeah. I have a playlist on Spotify called Heavy Shit, and it's just Nirvana, Metallica, Tool, Limp Bizkit. It's just shit I can get fucking violent to, and that's what I like.
It's crazy that you say that specifically, because I've had a playlist on my iTunes since we were in college called Heavy Shit. And it's constantly evolving, but that was one thing that I was hoping for, because knowing you and knowing the type of music that you get down to, this is a physical release, this is therapy for a lot of people. And I feel that every time I listen to this album, because it is so physical. And that's why I go to shows when I would go to Bass Nectar shows or Tipper shows, and these very physically demanding shows that you're going to release a lot of whatever you have going on, and it becomes its own therapy. And this is an album that I can put on, or I can play Pneuma, or I can play Descending and go on that 13-minute journey. And afterwards I can take a deep breath and be like, whoo, That
Yeah.
was something.
It was an experience.
That was something, exactly. And then you put the whole album together, and you get that over an hour and a half too, which is wild, especially at night walking your dog stoned, getting chased by dogs that aren't there. So
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I listened to the Color Storm mixtape the other day at the gym, and Nectar has his In Bloom remix on there. And the first time I ever saw Bass Nectar was 2011, and he played his In Bloom remix, and that was the moment that I realized, like, this is something that is for me, because I'm still such a huge Nirvana fan, but at that point, like, nobody had tapped into what Nirvana had tapped into for me, and to hear Bass Nectar play a Nirvana remix, I was like, this is exactly the type of music that I need to listen to for the same reasons you just explained. Like,
right,
it's just a heavy outer body experience, and it's just nice to have music like that,
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that was Fear Inoculum. You guys got any final thoughts before we move to Rides or Dies?
Christian?
If you like this, just do us a favor and fucking dive in. Go back through Lateralis. Go back through Undertow. If shit like this blows your mind, like, you are not ready.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Yeah.
All right, so Rides or Dies. Anthony, you want to intro your track for us?
Okay, so my Rides or Dies actually came out last week, or the day that I sent it to you guys was when it came out. And the only reason I made it my Ride or Dies is because I was in the middle of about to text it to Christian, and then I'm like just to say, listen to this shit. And then I'm like, well, fuck it, this is that. So the track is called So What, and it's by a guy. He's a producer. His stage name, I guess, is East Forest, and it's a long track, so don't get intimidated by the length of time, because it really is a track that's based around a narrative or a monologue, I guess you could say, or a ramble of Duncan Trussell from the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. And he is such an interesting human, and hearing the way his brain works in real time, the way he's kind of elaborating on thoughts and ideas is so interesting. And to hear it mashed up with music in this kind of way, it's very complimentary and also hilarious, So that was something that I wanted to put out there in the world for people to listen to, and it's part of a new album that just came out last week, again by East Forest.
Nice, Christian. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I love Duncan. I was not prepared for this at all, by the way. I was not expecting it to be what the fuck it was, which made it all the better. Like, this rides, and I need to go. I didn't have time, but I'm going to go into the entire album. But I love him and his, like, active thought process through things and through things about life and how he kind of, like, sees the world. And it just makes me happy. He's one of those guys that, like, if you're having a bad day, or if you're going through some stuff or whatever it may be, as far as, like, changing your perspective on what it may be that you're going through, that dude is the fucking one. So this is a rides for me.
Very nice.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Hard rides. I mean, I knew that we all love Duncan Trussell. Like, his stream of consciousness, like, it's funny to listen to him talk, because sometimes on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, like, it's just him. Like, there's no one else on there, and he's just for an hour, like, just saying whatever the fuck is in his head. And sometimes, like, it's goofy and ridiculous, and there are sometimes where, like, it's amazingly profound, and, like, I think it's an accident that he's doing it. It's just thoughts in his head, and it's funny. Like, it was interesting hearing this. Like, I do have to say, when Anthony sends a Rides or Dies, this is exactly what I expect him to send. Something like this. This is so Anthony to send that I kind of chuckled to myself in the car when I heard Duncan start talking. I was like, of course Anthony fucking found this. Dude. But it is like, he just, like Christian said, like, Duncan has a way to make you happy, he has a way to make you really sad, and kind of contemplate, like, the fickleness of your life in sometimes a really happy way and sometimes a really sad way. Like, his bit on This Is Not Happening, those YouTube videos that they have where it's like a brief stand-up thing or whatever, he tells that story about going to a Dead concert, like, in the 90s to find acid, and the whole thing is just hilarious. But the end point of it is, like, that he coughs up a string that he has in his throat because he thinks he's dying, and he basically says, like, no matter what's going on in your life, like it's just a string in your throat. It's going to be okay. And like, it's funny when he delivers it and it's supposed to be a joke, but then after you listen to it, you're like, holy shit, like he's kind of right. Like it makes you feel better about shit going on in your life. So hard rides for me.
Something that I'll put on y'all's radar, or anyone listening's radar that has any interest in Duncan Trussell, there's a series on Netflix called The Midnight Gospel. And
so good.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So good.
And I wish they would do more, hopefully. But just a brief idea of what it is. It's animation based around excerpts from his podcast. So similar to that track, you're getting like 22-minute episodes on certain ideas. And it's so thought-provoking and so beautifully done and extremely trippy. But I love that show. I wish they would do more so bad.
Yeah, for sure. Christian, what's yours?
Mine is it's a song called A Little Bit Further by this UK producer called Tourist, and it's just light, just extremely ethereal. The very back end of this song, it really reminded me of that, I think it's pronounced Halcyon or Halcyon, that On and On song that was so popular back in the day, that has this just, it's super light and beautiful. And I liked the beginning of it, but there's something about the back half of it that you kind of just feel the weight, lift from your shoulders. And so, that's my rides or dies this week.
Yeah. Anthony, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. This song rode for me. It rode, but it actually lifted me. That was the thing, like uplifting and light, and like just very, especially after listening to Tool, I went right into what you guys had sent me, and I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I needed in this moment. And
nice
sometimes
change up.
That's the thing. It's like context for listening to music for me is so important. And Christian knows this. Like, and Blake, you too. Like when I would send y'all music, sometimes I'll say, listen to it in this way. Turn the lights off, or go outside, or wait for the sunset, or be driving. And like for this one, just taking a moment and just soaking it in really did it for me. So I enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
Fuck yeah.
Christian, I have to say, rare miss for me and you. Rare miss for me and you.
I thought it might be. I was accepted that when I said it.
This does not happen to me and Christian often. I'll tell you what. If you go back and listen to the past 4 or 5 episodes, we've just been jerking each other off, gassing each other up, every rides or dies. And I don't know, like I didn't know what this song was. I still don't know what it is. Like at the beginning, it's instrumentals, like it sounds like a band, and then it gets like kind of electronic-y house thing going on at the end, and like it's kind of all over the place. And I was kind of just like, I don't know, my mind was all over the place. It was throwing me off. So I gotta say dies. It scared me. I gotta say dies. But you know what, Christian? I feel like 1 for 5 or 6. That's a fair assumption. So
fair. Yeah. All right, I'll take it.
I chose Nobody Speak by DJ Shadow featuring Run the Jewels. So Run the Jewels is a rap duo, LP and Killer Mike. I will say this. Run the Jewels is very hit or miss for me. I'm not like a diehard Run the Jewels guy. There are some songs I really like. There are some songs I can't stand that I think are really corny. They collab with Zach De La Roche a lot. They've done multiple songs with them. Their whole vibe, I told Christian this, is like, their whole vibe is just fucking anarchy and hating like politicians, the wealthy. Like there's a line in one of their songs where they're talking about revolution and they're like, even if some good ones die, fuck it, the Lord will sort them. And like, I just love that attitude. Like, hey, this is a revolution. Like some people are going to die and we're willing to take that risk, And like, there's a line in this song where LP says, flame your crew quicker than Trump fucks his youngins. Like they're very anti-establishment, anti-everything. And sometimes I need that in my life. I need that type of energy. So that's why I picked it. I was rinsing it a lot these past few days. So Anthony, what'd you think?
I fucking love this song. I don't know. I probably had heard the full song before, but I've heard samples and I've heard this song used in so much different context. I think I had to look it up because I'm like, where have I heard this song? And then turns out I've heard this song a lot of fucking places. Like it's been used in a lot of movie trailers. It's been used in films. It's been sampled a lot. Pretty Lights, or Chris Carnes, I think, sampled it on tour right now with Pretty Lights. And yeah, so just another way to take it in, like taking the original form. Plus, I love fucking Killer Mike and I love DJ Shadow. So you put those two together and you get this, and it rides for me.
Hell yeah. Nice. Christian, thoughts? You're kind of grinning like I already know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
We're on the same page this week because this is a dodge for me.
Wow.
Oh, no, dude.
Surprise,
I knew it was
surprise.
coming.
And look, it's just, I think it's because kind of what Anthony was saying, like he's heard it in all these, I've heard it in so many contexts of these like kind of slapstick, like, comedy trailers, these like, fucking new Gen Z comedies that always have picture this. And I'm like, okay, here we fucking go again. They're gonna
It's like a movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart. Like that's the trailer.
Yeah. Well, it's like the scene when the like quirky person tries to be gangster. This song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's exactly it. And that's why I hate this fucking song. So
whatever, Christian was gonna give it a ride until I gave it some guys, and he had to fucking like come up with something real quick.
He had to pivot hard.
It's like no. Actually, this song sucks. Oh god. Okay,
whatever.
so that was Rides or Dies. All right, so we got some movies to talk about. We can get the killer stuff out of the way as long as you guys don't do any spoilers, because I haven't seen it. I don't have a Netflix account right now because of their password sharing bullshit. I will say I went on a David Fincher kick. I watched Social Network, into Fight Club, into Gone Girl this past week. David Fincher's my favorite director. I love him. I will never get tired of watching his movies. So if you guys have seen it, tell me what you think about it. But I think, Anthony, you had some thoughts on the killer as well.
So I watched this last night and on loudspeakers and in the dark. And that's exactly what I texted Trey. I said, watch this movie in the dark as loud as you can and soak it in, because it is raw. It is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross delivering a crazy score. I'd love to talk to you after you watch it. I don't want to overhype it, but dude, this is fucking crushed. I mean, I have a little binder of movie reviews that I write after, and it's basically just stream of consciousness afterwards. But I wrote in all caps, delivered and experience. And that's kind of, I'll save the rest for afterwards. But there's some interesting synchronicities too with this and Pretty Lights Tour. So I want to leave that with you. And then, like I said, we'll recap at some other point. But there's some interesting synchronicities with that.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm with you. I won't give a ton or any spoilers, but it's beautifully shot. How the story is delivered at times is so slow, but with so much impact in the best way. And the fucking score, the soundtrack, I will just say, they got some Smiths coming in at fucking perfect timing, and you're just like, this is what I needed right here. It's fucking, sick. So I think you're gonna dig it, but I'm stoked to see what you think.
I do have to say, I have to do a little dick riding real quick. I just have to say, David Fincher, man, that guy, the way all of the films from him that I love so much, like just the pacing, the dialogue, the way that he works the cameras, like The Social Network, honestly, and this is partially in part because of Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin wrote the screenplay for The Social Network, and he's just a master of dialogue. Like there's dialogue moments in The Social Network. There's dialogue moments in the Steve Jobs movie he did where it feels like you're watching, I don't know how else to explain it, but it feels like you're watching like a war movie. Like you're that pent up, like you're kind of anxious and like on the edge of your seat with your emotions, and it's just dialogue. It's just two people talking. And David Fincher, I mean, Fight Club is a huge portion of Fight Club is just dialogue between different characters, and I think that plays to his strengths so well in all of his movies. Gone Girl's the same way, and I never get tired of watching him. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's very similar to that. And I've been some people at work. Anthony, are you on Letterboxd? Do you know what Letterboxd is? Yeah. So I got on Letterboxd, and a bunch of people I work with are on Letterboxd, and we've just been shooting the shit about movies. And there's a bunch of people there that haven't watched like any Fincher, and I don't know how to contain myself. I'm like, you gotta watch this. I'm bringing people hard copies because I have Blu-rays of like all of them. So I'm bringing them hard copies and shit. But yeah, I'm excited to watch The Killer for sure. It's
and like you mentioned dialogue, and like all of his movies. Memento is very like narrative of this person and what they're experiencing, and Seven, you're in their heads, right? So like there's so much to say about the vibe that they set, that they create, that you're in their shoes. And The Killer, there's a mantra aspect to it that you will resonate with. I'm 100% on that.
Nice. So we said that we were going to watch Inglorious Basterds. Did you guys rewatch Inglorious Basterds?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you guys tell me your thoughts, Anthony. What do you think of it upon rewatch, or Tarantino as a whole?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Oh well, how much time we have? No. Well, so like I'll say my relationship with Inglorious Basterds. I want to say, and I'm not 100%, but I want to say it might have been the first Tarantino movie that I saw in the theaters before. And the first time I saw it, I remember being like, "Whoa! Like, what is?" I'm trying to figure out what the director's even trying to tell me, right? Because before I went and saw it, I would hear it's about, what would happen if, Hitler was killed or whatever and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's a weird angle to take. But then, you realize this is Tarantino and this is his world that we're in. And but that movie has one of the most tense opening scenes in a lot of films.
Oh my God, dude.
And like I thought that to myself, and then now like I Googled some reviews on it, and like people are agreeing with that. So I'm like, all right, this is even more impactful than I had imagined. But no, I love this movie. It's so raw, it's comedic, it's hilarious. There's something that I personally experienced in a movie theater, which was the film roll in the projector. This is at a dollar theater. So Christian and I have had so many experiences in a dollar theater. You wouldn't even believe were true. But like one time in a dollar theater, me and some people were watching a film. I don't even remember what movie that one was. But all of a sudden on the screen, it starts bubbling and boiling up like on a huge 10-foot or 10-story screen. And we're like, what the fuck is happening? We look back and there's like lights coming from the projector room, and then all the house lights come up, and they're like, we have to stop the screening because the film roll caught on fire in there. And rewatching Inglorious Basterds like brought me back to that, and I was like, wow, this is just, it keeps delivering even however many years after the fact. So
yeah, I
fucking love it.
Christian?
Yeah, I mean the opening scene is just if that is it, there's no words. Then she's sprinting off through the field, and he's like, "Oh wow, Shoshana," and you're like, "What the fuck, bro?" You're like, he's gonna find your ass, or you're gonna find him. I don't know what's gonna happen, but even his little kind of speech back and forth about the squirrel and the rat and the difference. I was like, "What the fuck is I was like, "This shit is and just the cast."
Yeah,
you go back and you look at the cast of that movie and you're like, holy fucking hell! And only Quentin Tarantino could fucking probably pull something off like that with that many people and make it work so well. But it's also just like the way that he pulls in those scenes that are so tense, that are like fucking jerking you like that, to his just like almost crying laughter, and you've got the fucking redneck who's attempting to be Italian.
Scene is so good.
Dominic DeCoco.
Gangster shit of the fucking bear Jew fucking knocking on the cave as he's walking. Just all these things, you're like, you couldn't possibly fit this. If I told you, like read them out like I am now, you're like, you couldn't put this in a movie and it worked, and it fucking works. It's just so good.
Yeah, I think like it's funny you bring up like the revisionist history, Anthony, because he did the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
Like it's like his version of the events or whatever. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I didn't know anything about it going into it. I had heard it was about the Tate murders and the Mansons, and like it is, but it's also not like kind of at all at the same time. It's weird. But Inglorious, I have to say, did you guys see Uncut Gems? The Safdie brothers movie?
Oh, hell yeah.
So the Safdie brothers do this thing, and they do it particularly in Uncut Gems, where they try to create these moments of anxiety, but they don't feel earned, like with the plot. Like it feels like there are things that they are creating for no reason, essentially. Like the one scene that sticks out to me in Uncut Gems is like, you get an hour and a half into the movie and things are like really anxious or whatever, and then they come to bring him back the rock and they get stuck in the door and they can't open the door, and it goes on for like 5 minutes. And it's like, I feel like they create these, like, they try to create these moments of anxiety, but they're kind of like, to me, it feels like lazy writing because they don't feel earned. And when I watched Inglorious Basterds, it reminded me of like, this is how anxiety is supposed to feel in a movie. Like that intro scene is you're so anxious. Like it almost like, it almost kind of makes me sick almost. Like,
yeah.
Like with that scene and with like Midsummer is a prime example of like that, this visceral anxiety that like makes you feel like sick almost. And Quentin Tarantino, in a bunch of his movies, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Brad Pitt goes to the ranch, like that's a perfect example of like that type of anxiety, and he just writes it and directs it so well. But like you guys said, there's also moments that are just fucking hilarious, dude.
Right.
And also, like, who doesn't love I mean, I'm sure Republicans don't, but who doesn't love a movie about killing Nazis? Like, that's like the best type of movie. Like, I want more movies about killing Nazis, and so I just think like, the way that he
beats the fuck out of him, and he's like describing it as he's like hitting it. He's like, "Don't he knocks it out of the fucking."
Well, it's crazy. So that guy, the Bear Jew, is Eli Roth, played by Eli Roth. So Eli Roth is a director of some crazy ass movies too, Hostel and a few others. But like, it's amazing how he can tie in people like that. And Samuel Jackson, I forget, is narrating the movie. You know, there's just so many like little glimpses where you're like, God damn, Quentin, like you just can't help yourself, you know, and it's so perfect. So like,
it's that Quentin power. It's that Quentin power, man. Like he has that like lore to him almost, where people just want to be in his movies, you know. And I think like Inglorious Basterds is it's a fun movie, and there's some beautiful shots in it too, which I think gets kind of left by the wayside. Like there's a lot of just beautifully framed moments, and like that. I know we keep going back to the opening scene, but Quentin doesn't use a lot of like cuts right throughout his movies. It's all like drawn out, like kind of one frame shots, right? Or like he'll move the camera, but he's not cutting the camera a lot. In that intro scene, like there's not a lot of cuts. It's like it'll focus on Christopher Waltz, is that his name, right? Yeah. It'll just be on him for like 6 minutes, and it doesn't move, and it kind of just it builds like you feel like you're like part of a real conversation. And you know, I think Quentin is kind of hit or miss. There are sometimes where people dick ride Quentin a little too hard, and I'm like, all right, like I get it. Pulp Fiction is you had a poster of it in college, I understand, but there are times where he really just shows like his genius, and I think Inglorious Basterds is like a perfect example of that. So
he's a master. But I want to say this in defense of the Safdie brothers, okay? Because let me ask you, Blake, have you seen? I mean, you mentioned tension in film, and there's their movie prior to Uncut Gems, Good Time. Have you seen
Good Time with Robert Pattinson? I haven't seen it, but it's like a similar vibe, right? It's like a similar vibe, right?
Dude, there's some crazy moments in that film where I literally out loud was like, "Oh fuck!" Like, God, like it is what I think their method of filmmaking, at least for those two films, is like when you think something can go wrong, it can go worse, you know. And it's like, oh shit, you want to see it. Like it's things you wouldn't see in everyday life, but like they're gonna show it to you. They're gonna set the scene. They're gonna put people locked in a box when there's a guy right there on the other side of it who they can't do shit about. And then see what happens.
But and there's an argument to be made that with Uncut Gems, like that is probably what a gambler's life is like, right? Like just these peaks and valleys, which is kind of what that is. But like they're just like the scene with Lakeith Stanfield when they go to Philly. And then Lakeith Stanfield just like fucks off to the locker room and leaves. Like there's no explanation to why he's doing that, or like. And I think like maybe he's leaving that out to like intentionally create more anxiety, because you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this happening? But at the same time, sometimes to me it's like you didn't have a reason. You just wanted to make things worse. Like that's kind of what it comes across as to me.
but like I think it would nowadays, like when we look at directors like Quentin, Martin Scorsese, these guys are in their own class. Even Fincher, but and Nolan, right? But Safdie brothers coming up, they're kind of creating their own lane. Ari Aster, you mentioned Midsommar, like he's creating a lane. And it becomes this kind of thematic fever dream in their films. But I think everything's intentional. Whether it hits or not is definitely debatable. But like nowadays, these guys are taking so much detail into account that when it does hit, it's something to take in. Yeah.
Christian, have you seen Midsommar?
Oh yeah, multiple times.
I can't rewatch that movie. I refuse to rewatch it.
Really? It's one of my favorites.
It made me so uncomfortable.
I just rewatch Exorcism of Emily Rose for Halloween. That's probably like the only one that's actually fucked me up for like weeks, not being able to sleep. But Midsommar, along with Hereditary, are probably in my top 10. I mean, just phenomenally beautiful, amazing movies.
Both of y'all. Blake, I sent you a long list of movies to watch, and to hear you say you saw Scream, I was like, all right, Scream is good, or it's its own thing. But Beau is Afraid is insane. And
it's like you told it's like 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Fuck it, just take off work for it. But you watch that one, Christian. When you watch that one, I'm gonna expect a phone call afterwards.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll watch it this weekend. I'll put that on the books.
But
I do like him a lot. Like I do think it speaks to his ability that like I can't physically rewatch Midsommar. Like it upset me so much psychologically that I refuse to rewatch it. So that's pretty telling.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't dislike the Safdie brothers. I enjoyed Uncut Gems, and I think Kevin Garnett in Uncut Gems is phenomenal.
Right,
I think he's hilarious, and it works so well. But I don't know, I'm just nitpicking to fucking nitpick. I'm just being a bitch, whatever.
I get it.
I think it's safe to say we're gonna continue to do movies on each episode.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
This is fucking great.
Yeah, honestly, and I don't have a lot of people to talk movies with, so it's been nice to hash it out for sure. But anything else you guys want to mention before we get off? We're at 1 hour and 6, man. This is our longest episode in a fucking minute.
That was fucking fun. Great pick, Anthony. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. No, I love listening. I listen to all of them. So keep doing them. Remember, try to do them weekly. But if you can't do them weekly, do them when you can. We're gonna keep listening, and I'm stoked to see what you guys keep coming up with. So appreciate y'all letting me come and crash the party.
Of course. And Anthony, the next time that Christian texts me an hour before we're supposed to record and is like, oh, I gotta go milk my cow, then I'll text you and we can just do a movie episode. We'll just do totally biased movies and just fucking chop it up 100%.
I'm game. Always game.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody listening. Anthony, thanks again. Christian, see ya.
He's out. Love you, man.
Yeah, he's out. Love you too, man. See ya.
See ya.